If you've ever had to electrical tape a battery on the outside of your gun because in the heat of the moment it just didn't fit, go ahead and like and subscribe. I feel like it's just not as cool when I do it, but if you think it is, go ahead and like and subscribe. No, still not cool. Here's my podcast. Thanks for joining me again, guys. It's your boy Viking here to bring you your weekly Nomad goodness. And as long as you guys are still out there trying to join, get on the show, and do the best you guys can, it's going to stay that way. So why not? Let's crack a drink to you guys. You knew it was coming, guys. As always, this show proudly sponsored by Niagara Quartermaster, located at 622 Welland Ave, St. Catharines. If you guys are ever looking for some gear or anything like that, go ahead and contact them. Their friendly staff will help you every step of the way. Without further ado, though, guys, this week's been kind of crazy. We've kind of been putting along doing this podcast as we go. This is the first week that I've had too much content to post all in one. Kind of mixing it together a little bit. As I was going through the editing process, I realized that just through the boys talking, we had over an hour worth of a show, and I really didn't want to make it a 2-hour show. I really want it to be one of those things that you can listen to on the way to work, something casual. That being said, I also don't want to take away from this week's amazing guest. You guys will see him soon. You've seen him all over the field. It's Ryan Sabad. You've seen him at Force Recon's events. You've probably seen him a lot if you're playing or living in the Ottawa area, as I recently learned, actually, that's where he's from. But I don't want to take away from it, guys. We're going to get into that, but there's one other thing that a member of the community has really gone out of their way to try and get involved with the show. He's been on the show before. It's Keanu from CDC. He said, and kind of gave the idea to start a weekly tips from Keanu. And so, here's Keanu's first tip of the week.
Don't be a dick.
What great words of wisdom. What a great way to start off the first tip ever. And as many of you guys know, that's Nomad's number one philosophy out there on the field. Really just doing our best to be great fucking guys. And hopefully that tip helps you be great fucking guys as well. But let's get to this interview. Cue that little cute noise that I do. I really like that. And if you guys don't, send me some audio that you want to put in. Right now I'm just kind of playing around with the program, but I like it. It's cute. All right, guys. Hope you enjoy. I'll see you after the podcast. What's going on, guys? Viking here. We have an amazing guest on the show today. Just one of those guys that I've definitely wanted to get on from the start, and I didn't know he was looking to get on as bad as he wanted to. So go ahead and tell us who you are, buddy.
Hi, I'm Ryan Sabad. I do Sabad photography. I've been the official photographer for Nightfall the last couple years now, and I've been running into you guys at the field all the time, and I've been looking forward to sit down with you. Yeah,
that's awesome. I just kind of a shot in the dark there when I sent you a message, but just got to say thanks for getting back to me so quick and being able to get on before this week, because I didn't really have anything else lined up.
Yeah.
But hey, buddy, let's do this Nomad podcast right and start it how we like to.
Oh, these cans suck.
I
came across is very weak.
No, I think mine came across actually kind of weak too. I do have to admit to the community, for full transparency, I'm not drinking a beer like the good old Viking, I'm actually drinking gin and sodas because I'm a little bitch. And the beer belly's got to go. So what's your drink of the evening there, Sabad?
I'm running some Corona, actually.
Nice.
Stolen from my roommate.
I like it. Actually,
he left it lying in the fridge, and he
didn't keep his
eye on it, so it's mine now.
Classic. So yeah, where a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are going to know you from is going to be from Nightfall. Every year that I've been there, you've been the photographer. That's only for me. I've only been to Nightfall twice now. A lot of people think I've been playing Milsims for a lot longer than I have been. But as we get going, how long have you been in photography in general and in airsoft photography?
Photography in general, I started roughly around 2008 or so. When I was in high school, we had a video class, essentially, like kind of like they combined like our daily announcements with like video editing and stuff like that. And so we had like this thing called Cougar Vision.
I had Cougar Vision also.
Yeah, and so I really enjoyed doing it, but it's like I didn't have the attention span for it. I have ADHD, and I couldn't really focus myself to sit down and like make a video, or I wasn't popular enough to be a personality either, because they always, of course, the most popular kids were the announcers and whatever. So, but like trying to find my groove, I ended up taking some photos to promote the school rugby team with, again, stolen goods. I borrowed my brother's like a little point and shoot camera, and I just took some pictures of some rugby and like the rugby field, and they ended up using them in between classes. So that was kind of like my start. So
that's crazy here. We have a little bit more in common that way than I thought. I did a lot of school announcements when I was in high school, stuff like that. Kind of got involved with student council, that sort of shit.
Oh, nice.
And I was also a rugby player all the way through
all
of school. So that's funny. So what was kind of the path that led it into airsoft photography? How did that kind of come up?
Well, since then I kind of had the the photography kind of blended in with whatever was my like hobby at the time, right? Like at the time I was big into skateboarding, so I spent a lot of time out at the skate park just taking photos of people, like whether they wanted it or not, stuff like that. Just
honing your craft.
Yeah, kind of just like doing it kind of thing. And that was well and good for a while. And that kind of actually blends into how I ended up getting into airsoft as well. It was like of course being a 17, 18-year-old kid, I was big into like Call of Duty and stuff like that, and I really, of course, like I mean, who doesn't like the look of like a classic M4 or like an MP5, right? And I just happened to be one day like at the Walmart near my house, and I see these airsoft guns, like the Clearsoft stuff, and I was like, I mean, yeah, sure, it's clear, but I mean, it looks a lot better than like the paintball guns do. Like they don't feel realistic, and it's like I like the realism of it. I like the aesthetic looks of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think I picked up like a shitty electric Desert Eagle, I think.
Nice.
And it just ended up coming up at the skate park that this other kid had an airsoft gun. And I will preface this that like if there's any younger kids listening to this, don't do what I did, please.
Did you bring it to the skate park?
Someone else did first, because he lived close by, and then we're just like, well, I mean, we're all skaters here. We all kind of hate cops to begin with, so it's like, fuck it. And so he brought his Springer shotgun, and I brought this little dinky Desert Eagle, and we spent like the full day just like shooting at each other from like across a barrier.
That's awesome.
And there was a period of like it got to a point though where some of the other skaters were like, guys, you can't be doing this anymore. There's BBs everywhere. They're like pebbles, and they stop us on our tracks. Yeah. So they weren't concerned about guns. They were concerned about being able to skate. And so like I was like, oh, well, all right. Like, so, well, then what am I supposed to do? Well, yeah, that makes
total sense, I guess.
What am I supposed to do with this? Because, I mean, I can't just walk down the street with it, obviously. I mean, like, I was at least smart enough to know that. And I literally Googled Ottawa Airsoft, and the first thing that came up was the forums at the time, the Ottawa Valley Airsoft Forum. And I joined that. I met with a couple guys who age verified me, and they're like, well, we're going to an event out in February. Do you want to come with us? And it was I'm not sure if you're familiar, the mill out in Quebec.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was first event I ever went to was at the mill, and what a great place to do it, because honestly, it hooked me. Like it was like this crazy 3-4 story building, like just full of people with all the military gear, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this, and because I wasn't playing that day, they let me bring my camera, and I took some shots of that, and I mean, 10 years later, here we are.
Here you are. So, that's funny. So that's kind of like the opposite start for me. Like I played paintball when I was younger, and kind of got out of it because I didn't enjoy it as much. Like I always saw the airsoft guys walking onto the field because where I played was Sega Beach paintball. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
Unfortunately not, no.
Oh, it's just an amazing field. It's the SJ Knights is the team that it is their sponsor field, or they're the guys there. Amazing paintball field, like the coolest stuff. It's kind of like one of those fields that is broken up into like 12 different maps and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so they would break the field up into 6 being paintball and then like 1 or 2 being airsoft, and they would rotate everyone throughout the day. Well, you would always see the airsoft guys walking by and be like, well, that is a lot fucking cooler than what I'm doing. And kind of got out of paintball, and years later, like probably I guess about 5 years ago now, 4 or 5, my girlfriend's brother was playing airsoft at the time, and he asked me if I wanted to come to a game. And I was like, well, I'm not going to use a rental gun, because I had already known from paintball that people look down on renters no matter what. Yeah. Rentals are kind of looked down on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to Niagara Quartermaster. I'm going to buy some stuff. I ended up talking Carly into letting me buy everything I needed.
I've heard those stories.
Yeah, because you
walk in to buy one thing and you come out with $1,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah, I told her. She's like, "Oh, how much is it gonna be?" I was like, "Oh, probably like at least $300." We walked in through the door, and like it was to the point that I had to like be like, "Hey, can we go talk outside for a sec?" And I had to like beg and plead. I'm like, okay, no, this is. But anyway, so I walked out of there with all of my kit. Still looking pretty noobish, but at least more advanced, and I went to one of my first games. So right off the hop, I was good to go. But it's always good to hear how other people got into the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So you did a little bit of photography when you were younger, stuff like that. What are some of the more recent past events that you've done other than Nightfall, or do you?
I do other events. I mean, when I first started going with the airsoft stuff, it was a lot of just like, especially the first year or two when I was still playing consistently, it was a lot of like, it's like, I'm just going to go, like I'm going to everything, whether it's a big game, small game, I'm just going to stuff. But in recent years, it's a lot of like kind of, it has to be a pick and choose, because I additionally with doing photography, I work security. Awesome. And my work schedule, I only get like one weekend off every 3 weeks. Yep. So I have to like pick and choose which ones I want to do. So, but the ones that like come to mind for me, a big one was this event out in Ottawa called it was a Fallout themed game called Fallout New Ottawa.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was hosted by my former team, the Honey Badgers, where it was essentially like it was the closest thing you could probably get to LARPing, really, because it's like, yeah, it's just like dress up as like wastelanders, or like make your vault costume, all this sort of stuff. And people, like, people could walk on if they wanted to, but it was also like a lot of fun seeing all these different costumes people would make, and just kind of post-apocalyptic kind of looks and stuff like that. It was really neat. And I really enjoy taking photos of that, because again, it's like, I as much as I enjoy taking photos of the milsim, of like the full military kit and all that, it's nice to kind of step away and have a little bit of fun with like the creativeness that people bring like that.
Oh, so, exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of in that general area, if people, I know like a lot of people in the community are always looking for events to be kind of photographed. I couldn't think of the word photograph for a second. That's why I was stuttering. So what is the past tense of photograph? Would people be able to try and get into contact with you, or how do you usually set things like that up?
Yeah, I'm always open to people contacting me. Like I believe, like on my cards when I still had them, when I haven't renewed them yet, but when I had them, I even had my phone number on there. So if people wanted to reach out to me, or like Facebook, Instagram, all the stuff that I got, like I tell people like reach out if you want, like let me know of stuff that's going on, and then like we'll try and find a way to get out there. So yeah, if people are interested in having me come out, I'm always interested. It unfortunately would depend on if my work has taken me for that weekend or not.
Oh, exactly. And kind of touch back on the post-apocalyptic thing. Oh, it didn't work. I'm trying to send you a picture of a game that we attended.
Oh, yeah.
Save it right now. Hosted at not Niagara Quartermaster, Greyfield, but it was actually hosted at the Wasaga Beach Field by the SJ Knights. It's a... Oh,
sorry about that.
Did you leave? Bye. I just sent you a picture. It's a post-apocalyptic style game as well, where Carly and I, as well as one of our other teammates, won Best Dressed.
Oh, yeah.
Total dressed up Mad Max style.
Nice.
So just the things, like, unfortunately this year that game falls on the same weekend as Risk 3, I think it's called. It's either Risk 3 or Risk 4. Risk 4 is a classic milsim hosted by our boys at NPAC. Jamie and Ardak always host amazing games. But unfortunately it falls on the same weekend as this Judgment Day game that is something that we'd promised to be at months in advance, and we had an amazing time. We threw a kegger at my mom's place. Actually, no, I don't think we ended up having a keg, but it was just with the team, bunch of booze, classic Nomad party, and built costumes together. And then I'm pretty sure we the game started at 8, and I think we went to bed at 5. It was a rough day. A couple of us, it's the only event where a couple of us didn't make it through the entire event simply because of the night before. Usually we try to push through. But that was definitely one of those nights. Mm-hmm. So back to your airsoft photography. Do you have plans in the future this year taking photos? I know Daybreak coming up. Is that something you're involved in, or?
I don't know yet. Well, I don't.
If Force Recon didn't ask you, I will talk to
have a hard time like wording things.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I haven't directly heard anything yet about Daybreak. If I believe at the moment I might currently be scheduled to work like my work security, but I mean, if they're looking for me to come down, I'm more than happy to try and make arrangements.
Well, my boys over at Force Recon better be looking for Ryan Sabad. Better be. That also kind of in that realm of Force Recon's games. So at Nightfall this year was the first year that I'd seen multiple photographers. There was you, my girl Katie P, love her to death, and who was the other girl though?
Oh, I feel like I should know this. For some reason, I can't recall. Well, in my defense with that, because again, I should know the other photographers, but in my defense, kind of my tactic when it came to Nightfall this year was, as much as I want to be able to talk shop with the other photographers, to best get the the best amount of photos and variety of photos for everyone, it was probably be best to kind of like avoid each other. So then we're all in separate parts of the field, and then everything is getting covered. So kind of by that regard, I kind of didn't spend any time with any of them. So
yeah, and I also feel really bad. I'm gonna pour myself a little drinky poo. Drinking liquor is so much less convenient than just cracking a beer.
I know, right?
So much more process, but
especially for me, it's like I feel like I have to be in the right mood to do it. Like I couldn't have just ate a meal because it's like it just sits on top. And
we've been really getting into gin lately. The whole team, just summer, nice. Usually the whole team comes over and we hang out by the pool here. And but anyways, back to it. I feel really bad about. I didn't really.
I'm trying to find
go out of my way to.
I think it was like Alicia Day, I believe was one.
Was that the other? It was the blonde girl. I know the brunette / reddish girl. I forget what color Katie's hair is. I don't know. But I know her. But I haven't seen too much of posting wise from the other girls, and I don't even really know what her thing is.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think they all ended up putting their photos into the big album that's on the Force Recon page.
Yeah.
So if they've done so, like their photos are all up there and
awesome.
One thing I will say then is like, I mean, I may unfortunately not remember names very well. I mean, that's part of my life in general.
Yeah,
but
I'm bad with names too.
Other than that, I can say I've enjoyed everyone's photos so far. So.
Oh yeah, the photos this year were phenomenal, and also if anyone listening has contact with her at all, or I might even try and find it right after this. Definitely send that information this way. But I know my opinions on photography and airsoft, but kind of before I get into like my opinions, what role do you think photography plays in airsoft?
What role?
Yeah. How important do you think it is for an actual game?
That's a very good question.
Yeah. How important do you think your job is, Ryan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it's important. It's important enough to me that I was like, somebody has to do it, so I might as well, kind of thing.
Exactly.
I don't think it's critical. Like, obviously, it's not like, well, wait, guys, we can't play yet. The photographer hasn't arrived yet. Like, nothing like that. But it's definitely something that, I mean, in general in life, I mean, having a photographer or someone taking photos is invaluable. Like, you can't quantify that because I mean, it just
captures the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and being able to have people who do that with airsoft is. I mean, it's equally as important, especially because, like, there is that kind of stigma to airsoft and photography, where, like, one of the most common questions I get asked on like Reddit and online is like, "What do you use to protect your camera gear?" And I often I'll tell them the truth. It's like, well, I just use a basic filter, like a basic clear filter.
Yep.
Because, I mean, if there's going to be anything that's going to be powerful enough to damage a lens, I'd rather take a $5 filter than the actual lens itself.
Yeah.
Although, with that said, I have always had, like, a theory about that. Because, like, I mean, these lenses, I mean, they're, like, kind of...
They're expensive.
Meta talking about it. Well, exactly. I mean, the joke is, it's like, if you... like, teach your kids photography, they'll never have enough money for drugs.
Yep,
right?
yeah.
And it's mostly because of the lenses. So considering the amount of, like, first off the price, but because of the price is because of the amount of engineering and the technology, and just like if you looked at like a cross section of a lens, like, they're thick pieces of glass and they're curved and there are all these big, like, things about them. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of felt that unless someone is shooting like a really hot gun with, like, that's standing a foot away from you and shoots it directly into your lens, I personally don't think anything would happen if it was like a standard interaction. But that is why I only say it's a theory. I haven't been able to test that yet. I do have old... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying I hope this stays as at a theory and you don't have someone that ends up shooting directly at you with a hot gun.
Like an accidental experiment, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do have some old equipment, like a broken lens that I want to try it. Like I do want to
in the name of science. Experiment.
Exactly. And of course, I mean, in the name of science, I want to film it and everything too, but like to really get the data that you want, like I want to try and find someone who has one of those like the high-speed cameras, like the Phantom, like
to really show for the community. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think and like make entertainment out of it too.
Well, and I think a video like that would really also help the community. Maybe make it a little bit more, depending on how the research turns out. It could maybe make it a more inviting space for more photographers to get
exactly
involved.
That, yeah, because I've definitely spoken to other photographers who are like, it's like, I'd love to be able to do what you do, like doing the like the airsoft photography, but it's like, I mean, I spent like $3,500 on my stuff or more, and it's like, I don't want to risk it, and it's like, I respect that, but I don't know.
You just got to get in there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of like been my point of view on taking the photos as well. It's like, I mean, anyone can take a photo like from behind the action, right? But no one like there's only so many photos of like behind someone's head that really before it's all right, been there, done that.
Yeah, and there's and the quality of your photos is just uncomparable. Like
Thanks.
I've said it multiple times on multiple different platforms, and like. Some of the pictures you get that capture really that, like, the mentality of what's going on in the scene. Like, it really does promote the sport. I think that photographers in Airsoft, depending on what style of Airsoft you're playing, is absolutely crucial. Like,
yes, yeah.
People going out to these walk-on games, as much as there's not much of a photography scene in walk-on games, but what there is...
Right. And there's not much of a demand either, too. I mean,
no, but what there is, and Nomad went through it too, is people with cell phones taking pictures of their friends, stuff like that. And everybody wants to look cool. The only reason, like, Airsoft is just military LARP. That's all it is.
Right, yeah.
You're out there playing pretend, and you probably want to look cool. So you see a cool picture of yourself, and then maybe that pushes you a little bit further to be like, oh, this is what I could change in my gear. Because you never really get to look at you with your gear on, right?
That's true, yeah.
So then it changes a little bit, and then you get to these milsims like Force Recon's milsim, which is a fairly serious milsim, but it's definitely not like the hardest of hardcore games.
That's true. Like, it's a good, like, middle ground, right?
Yeah, it's phenomenal game. I'll be going every year that it's hosted, and so will Nomad as a team. But it's definitely that good area where milsim players go, and there's also a steady mix of newer players that have broken onto the milsim scene, and it's what they want to get into. And having a photographer there really makes everyone play their best and try and look their best, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I've asked this before. You have to have a file that is just the most unflattering pictures, because I haven't seen a lot of pictures that you've posted, or really any Airsoft pictures that are posted that are just disgracefully unflattering of people. And I know there's a lot of big boys out there playing Airsoft, so is that, you got to have something.
It's funny that you say that, like, because that made me think, like, yeah, I should have a folder like that, just like the worst kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been some photos that I've gotten that, like, I just look at and I have to laugh because it's like, because it's this freeze frame in life, and then you just like, it's not like the person themselves really looks bad. It's just like that half second. It was like, ooh, oh,
yeah.
Like,
sorry, I might have misspoken there. Not necessarily a photo, but like a vetting process of what you actually post.
Oh, I see. Okay, sort of like do's and don'ts of
like you don't want to post a picture of someone when they're looking. There was like, I know, just on a personal side,
if they're dead. For me, the big one is no one wants a picture of themselves when they're dead. And I try and avoid them. There's been like one or two just because like artistically, or at least in my opinion, like it looks interesting. Like I think yesterday I put one up of a guy who was sitting on barrels out in the north field, and he's dead, but just because he's just kind of like sitting there just waiting, relaxing. I was like, this is kind of a neat photo, and I took that one. And if I could, I would remove the kill rag, but I mean it.
Well, it's a part of Airsoft too, right?
On that one.
It's definitely part of the sport, and like I know there's no point that you well, actually I don't know for sure, but like I don't think you should ever feel underappreciated in the Airsoft world, because like what you guys are doing out there really makes it better for all the players there, because they kind of get to look at themselves from a different perspective rather than just maybe looking at your gear in your mirror or something like that. But I also think there is a cutoff point that photographers are required. Like once you start getting into the more hardcore actual simulation games, I think that would be the point that a legitimate photographer would take away from the experience.
I can see that. If anything, I would probably say that like if they were to continue, like if you would want a photographer from there, you'd have to kind of consider them a player as well, where like as if they're press or something like that. Like make them a role.
That's an unreal idea, actually. Yeah. If you were to,
I'd love to do that too. Like I'm open. We don't, at least in the Ottawa area, we haven't had a lot of like games that do a lot of like the LARP aspect or like the NPCs. But it's like I'd love to like kind of like infuse myself into the game itself, like be that annoying press guy who like bugs you with questions or stuff like that, you know.
Well, I'm sure with enough time and beers we could maybe make something happen. But that's actually a phenomenal idea of putting you into the role of something like that for those more high-end games. Make it a, say, protect objective, like where your like military units have that, where they're given this press guy or whatever. I don't know the real shit. I'm not a military guy, but if you were actually part of the squad in there to do that and play your role, in that case, 100%. To have just a photographer that's there taking pictures while guys are trying to do their best pretending But that would be the only spot in Airsoft that I don't think it would happen, but also everyone has opinions.
Well, exactly, yeah.
I'm going to make sure to get your information and stuff like that, in case anyone's wants to get a hold of you, or from hearing these ideas have their own ideas. So you're primarily based around the Ottawa area, correct? Is that what you said?
I am, yes, yeah.
Okay, well, for anyone out there, and I know I'll be sending you a message when we host some games, not even to get you to come down and take some pictures, just to get you to come have some beers with us. We always have.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
I know you probably already know this, but we throw one hell of a party, so.
That's true, yes, yeah. You got photo evidence to prove it, too.
Yeah. Really digging deep, getting into the hard-hitting questions here. What happened last year with the Force Recon pictures? Also, just before you start, for anyone that doesn't exactly know the background of it, at some point in time, the pictures kind of fell off, and it was definitely a big question in the community, and Ryan and I have already discussed this a little bit, so I'm not just throwing this at him out of nowhere. That'd be a dick move. But, if you could kind of explain a little bit, because I know a lot of people were kind of, not upset, but like we said, how important photography is in Airsoft, kind of really looking for those pictures of themselves. Take it away, buddy.
Because you mentioned that during the pre-show, and it reminded me, I actually, I'll be honest, I didn't hear much about that until maybe 3-4 months leading up, when Force Recon was like, "Hey, is there still any more photos left?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, there is. I should probably try and get those out." And unfortunately, I still haven't, because now I'm focusing on this year's photos.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's well, first off, like you said, you haven't surprised me with this. It's more of a, I do think that it's a fair question, and I think it is something that the people who were waiting for those photos should know the answer to, and they should have something, like, instead of just being like me just kind of throwing my hands up in the air and fading in the background.
Even if it was just you know what, sorry, that's better than kind of like what had happened, where it just kind of everyone's like, are they coming or aren't they? You know what I mean? And exactly. I mean, on the other hand, it's as much a hobby for you as it is for us.
To an extent. I mean, me and Force Recon, we have made agreements leading up, like, before the game itself. So, like, we're helping each other out. Not like, but like,
I feel like I've really put you on spot with this one. I really feel bad.
Oh no, don't worry about it. That's not the case at all. It's just when I try and, like, choose my words so then I don't kind of, like, not make sense.
Oh,
like, I stumble quite a lot, so that's on me. But anyways, getting to it, essentially, that last year was a very busy part of it was a very busy time. Like, there was in June there was Nightfall, and then later on in the, I believe, July, August, that pretty much must have been when it, like, slowed down.
Right.
I had a big family trip to Manitoba to see my grandfather. And then right after, like, literally, like, I had like 2-3 days to myself, and then I had to go to Toronto, where I was doing a wedding of a buddy of mine, and I shot that, and so I have 3, like, big events worth of photos, just kind of sitting there, and kind of just it was kind of a mix of a couple different things, kind of like the ADHD factor, because I while I do have ADHD, I haven't medicated since high school, so trying to manage, like, ADHD a little bit. I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's not like, because I've been dealing with it since, like, for at least 10 however many odd years now. So I mean, I know how to manage at least, but there will be times where it's like, if I'm not directly if I'm not hyper focused on that thing, it's a slog, right?
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. Yeah. Like, trying to do this, so
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, I feel it. Like an example of that was because before I started doing photos for Nightfall, I played 2 years beforehand, and the first year I had a helmet cam footage where from my perspective, and I think I sat on it for like 3-4 months until one night when I was like, I had not fallen asleep, so I had like 26 hours awake, and I just had like a blink moment where it's like, oh, I know how to edit this, and I was able to do it in like 2 hours. But then the next year I had like more footage and all sorts of stuff. I've done nothing with it. It's like, it's just it's a light switch, right? It's either you have it or you don't.
Well, and that's the thing too. And I'm not a photographer by any means, but I'm a content creator nonetheless. And without having the proper motivation behind it, like, people can tell when you're not inspired by the ideas you have. And really, I can't see anyone in the community actually hearing a legitimate response and having any ill feelings about that. I mean, like, we're all people. You got a lot of shit going, stuff like that. I think where a lot of the confusion came from is that no one had heard, kind of thing. But I mean, Now, hey, that's what the Nomad podcast is for.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
People hearing that, I think it'll make a lot more sense for people, and especially with the amount of stuff you've pumped out already this year. I didn't know that there was this much stuff coming out. Like there's so many pictures already of absolutely everyone. So
yeah.
But and also I just want to say
I do have a little bit more to add to that if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, that's 100%.
So yeah, like in addition to the whole kind of like the big amount of stuff just hitting me all at once, and then the addition to the like again, not to say, like I don't want to say that like editing the photos is a slog. It's just again like it's just every so often, like if you're just not able to sit down and do it, it's like doing 5 photos takes you an hour, but if you're into it, it takes 20 minutes. And then kind of like just as time progressed, because like I mean I could still like go back and then do more, but it just things ended up compounding too, where it's like I started working with a logo field in Smith Falls, and I enjoyed doing that, doing kind of like studio work. Like they let me set up like a green screen and take photos of players, kind of touching on that whole like seeing what looks good kind of thing. Like a lot of people enjoyed that, or at least I assume, because it lets them kind of see like this hero shot essentially of themselves. But it was a lot of compounding, and then the kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? I'll say it, but like I don't necessarily mean specifically, but like depression. I wouldn't go as far as saying depression. Yeah. But it was kind of like that. Like I knew that I was letting people down when it came to those photos because I didn't get them out, and I was even more I was more so because I was also doing the same thing to this couple who I took their wedding photos. Right. And it's just kind of like not like. I felt awful, and it's that kind of like awful feeling, and it kind of compounded to that light switch kind of thing, where it's like it became harder and harder to do the light, like turn that switch on, because it's like I know that like it's been like 6 months now, and I haven't done a new photo, and like like they'll message me, and it's like, hey, so how are the photos going? And I don't have an answer for them other than I'm just I just haven't found the time to sit down, and I feel bad. And it's just this whole compounding thing. And with that brought up, I mean, if in the case that they're listening, because one of the like the husband, he goes to Nightfall every year as well, like he's kind of like dealing with me with this. It's that it's been a year now, coming up in August, and I unfortunately still haven't been able to give them all their photos yet. And it's one of those things where it's like I really do want to, like, I want nothing more to please people. I want to be able to give people these photos and be like, be happy. Yep. But I'm literally doing the opposite of not giving them the photos and making them upset. And it's something that I do want to fix. It's been a thing that I've been dealing with that, with this last year, kind of just compounding more and more photos on top of it, just kind of
just builds
added
and
to
builds.
it. And, yeah. But so far this year, I've kind of felt like Nightfall this year was the reset button. It sucks that it took a year to hit that reset button, but I'm really trying to get back into the same editing process that I had in previous years. I'm really hoping to. It's also part of the reason why I do the 10 photos a day when it comes to the Nightfall photos. There was someone who mentioned when I joined the chat here,
Little Nick.
Turtle Taj.
It's Little Nick from NPAC.
Yeah. He came in and he's like, oh, Mr. T's over here, and it's like, well, I would love to be able to just pump out as many photos as possible, but I feel like the 10 a day is the best way of being able to make sure that at least something is coming out consistently instead of a lot very inconsistently. Yep. But as I said, I made a promise to him. I'm going to surprise him, and this is going to be a surprise for you as well. We're going to have to take down the timestamp for this moment because as of this moment when the podcast is playing, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to be uploading a large chunk of new photos from the from Nightfall 8 onto the Force Recon page.
Wait, so if is Nightfall 8 this year?
Was that?
Is Nightfall 8 this year?
This year's photos, yes.
Oh, okay. I forget how many Nightfalls.
Sorry. This year's 2019's Nightfall. I'll be uploading because again, I've only been doing the 10. I'm going to try and hit, let's say, 60 or so, or maybe more. It depends.
Ooh, boys coming in hot.
At this very moment, if you're listening, go check out the Force Recon website or Facebook page. Going to be new photos. So.
And hopefully
that's for you, little Nick.
That's awesome. I'm sure they'll be good to hear. It'll be good for everyone to hear that. And the other thing too is everyone out there on the airsoft field, they're all people too. Everyone's got their own stuff going. Everyone's got their own problems. There's no one out there that's going to feel any sort of anger or anything towards not getting a couple snaps at them. So I really hope maybe through just like you and I talking and stuff like that, you can kind of take some of that stress off your shoulders. And like the content you provide for the community is just killer. Great bud.
Thanks, man.
I
really appreciate that.
Just a great fucking guy. So kind of.
Sorry. I'm so sorry to.
No. You
before
first.
We continue on the next topic. Closing with the whole Nightfall 7, the 2018 photos. I do have full intentions on returning to those photos. I don't want them to take away from this year's photos, because I mean they're both equally important.
Yep.
I will return to them. I will upload them as soon as I can. I do feel that it is important that I do the wedding photos.
Yeah,
just
do
because
the
they've also
first.
I mean, they're wedding photos, right? I mean, Nightfall or Airsoft in general. I mean, as much as it's my bread and butter, I mean, wedding photos are like it's a one-time thing. So I feel it's very important that they're able to get those memories as soon as possible. So
absolutely. Still on that, I know a question that's come up. I know it would probably take away from the work you put into it, but is there any possibility of just uploading it raw? And I can understand it would take away from... I keep forgetting to turn my notifications off. Is there any chance of that? I know it would take away from like the editing process that you do and the quality of work that people know and love from you.
Yeah. That is also a good and difficult to answer question. I mean, you are right. I mean, like, I see both sides of that, right? Where, yeah, I just get them out so then people can see them. But as well, from my perspective, it's not so much as like taken away from the editing. I mean, editing is definitely very important. I spend a lot of time on it. But it's also like, I mean, a lot of the part of the editing process is the biggest part of the editing process is the color and exposure correction. I'll admit, like, if it isn't for digital, I would be a shitty photographer, honestly, because I take thousands and thousands of photos. Half of them are too dark, half of them are out of focus. Like, it's a very hit or miss process for me.
Yep.
In fact, like, if I can, like, I actually have the file count for this year's photos. It's around, I've taken about 4,100 photos from Nightfall this year alone. And then by the end of it, like, going through them, because, like, there's a lot of duplicates because I shoot in, like, a burst of, like, 4 or 5. It's like, we'll probably see maybe 500 at most, I think. Like, I think that's a generous number. Yep. So, like, I could just, like, here's 4,000 photos, like, find the ones that you like. But it's a lot to go through, and it's like...
I retract my statement. I fully retract my statement.
I do respect that question, though, because, again, it's if it's a matter like, because I mean, you know, it's kind of like it might be a fun way of doing it too, of kind of like crowdsourcing. Like, I mean, for myself, like I'm the only one who picks and chooses these. I go through them and be like, this one looks good, this one looks good. Maybe if I crop this one, kind of thing. But yeah, like in theory, like I just like here's the 4,000 photos, here's the file names. Tell me which ones that you guys want, and then I'll do those ones.
Yeah, exactly. And
like, that would be an idea too.
There's always things you can try too, right? Like if you were to, I mean, 4,000 is a little bit excessive, but if say you ran through real quick, said, okay, I kind of think these ones turned out a little bit okay, posted 500 pictures that are raw, and then said, which ones do you guys want edited, kind of thing, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a photographer. I'm barely even a podcaster.
Aren't we all?
But speaking of photos, moving on, the last couple kind of 10 photos already you've been posting a day have had a couple of the Nomad Kegger.
Yes, yeah.
Something that I've been dying to talk to you about, because you've been at both the major ones. I know you were there when we first started.
That was not this year's, but the year before.
Last year. That was the very first Nomad Kegger ever. And I don't want to get on your ass at all, but if you could just send me whatever you have, or even just post it, anything, whatever you can do, because like those are memories right there. Like that's where Nomad started.
I remember you guys had like the kiddie pool to keep the kegger in, and like go everywhere.
But this year, you brought out a couple new things. You were doing some red filter thing. What was that?
So one of the kind of like things that I like I want to obviously biggest goal at Nightfall is to get as many photos of everyone as possible. I don't want to leave anyone out. Big kind of hurdle to that is trying to make sure, big hurdle to that is nighttime. Yeah. I become very limited in when I can shoot and where I can shoot, because I could go out, like I could stay out in like the North Field or like the Frago area and just start taking photos with my flash. But the big problem with that is that, I mean, I'm ruining everyone's natural night vision, and it's just, I'm blinding people and then theoretically giving away positions. It's one of those things where it's like you said, kind of like that good blend of like when to have a photographer. At nighttime, not a great time, because it's like, I mean, people are doing their thing. However, this year, kind of like, since I started doing a lot of the studio photography, one of the new pieces of equipment I picked up was they call them gels, but they're essentially colored not covers, but clear colored plastic covers, essentially. Yep. Like they're clear, see-through, but they have like they're colored. So then when I put them on top of a flash. So then when the flash goes off, it just, instead of being a bright white light, it's whatever color that is.
More softer red this year it was.
Right, exactly. Right? So I had a bunch of red gels that I put onto the flash, and I was like, I'm going to test this out, because they say that red, like the red hue doesn't affect your natural night vision. Like that's why you see like military guys, they have like the red filtered flashlights and stuff like that. Like it still works, but it doesn't, like when they turn it off, they can still see relatively well at night.
Yep.
So I want to try that out. So on the first night on Friday, I had my camera in one hand, and I put the flash on a tripod in my other. So I kind of would, because I really love like the off camera lighting effects.
Yep.
So I would have it on my hip, and I would point it, like it would be off to the left, and I'd point it towards someone, and I'd do a lot of portraits, and that's where you're seeing a lot from the Kegger photos are like that. And they honestly, like, it took me a little bit to like really find the groove with those shots, but they came out pretty well. Like with my editing style, like I was able to get a very cool, like almost like an outrunny look with like the cyan and red kind of magenta and stuff like that. So
you're saying a lot of fancy photographer words,
fancy colors, you know.
I know what cyan is, because for some reason my printer's always out of it, and I've never printed anything in cyan. But the one thing I will say from those pictures, personally, I know I'm probably a little bit biased, but the amount of smiles and laughter that you've captured in those photos is just unbelievable for me and also for everyone on Nomad that sees that, because we go out of our way to kind of host something that's different in the community, and Force Recon's backed us 100% on really just changing up the pregame of these mill sims. Unfortunately, this year I really only got like 4 or 5 beers out of that keg, because I was like, as soon as we cracked the keg, I was hauled off to the squad lead meeting for our team, and by the time I got back, those kegs were gone. Like all the boys and girls this year.
I heard it was midnight. They were gone, right?
Yeah, we're like the year before we did 2 kegs and we ended up taking half one home. This year we're like, we had talked about possibly bringing 1, and we were like, no, you know what? We better bring 2. Good thing we did, because that's 2 kegs gone in 2 and a bit hours.
Wow.
Maybe sorry. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was like 3.5, maybe 4. So, but even still, good work for the guys. And
yeah, every time I would walk up, just kind of like I do rounds, kind of rolling around. So there would be somebody like, "Here's a beer." I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah, and
I literally just finished the last one, but all right.
I really do. I know I always do a shout out to the guys at Impact, but I really have to say, like them, Anthony especially. Like we always say, great fucking guy. But all of the guys at Impact really kind of stepped up and helped us serve beer, everything like that, because all the nomads were kind of spread out, doing our best to talk to people, keeping the party going. And that whole group of guys like kind of stepped up to serve beer for us, and it was definitely like the epitome of like, yeah, these guys are definitely our friends.
Yeah.
But moving on with it though, what's your opinion on what the Nomad keggers bring to Airsoft?
What they bring?
How does it change the game?
Well, I will say this. I thankfully I haven't heard much since, but when during the after action report period, there's always those people who have things that they want to complain about. I did see one comment about the kegger. I was a little disappointed with that.
I think all of us jumped on that one too.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. Like, I like to, at the very least, like empathize with everyone. Like, I see where he was coming from.
Yep.
But considering, like you said, like Force Recon is on your side with that, and I'm glad that they are. And I do, and I've kind of thought about it. Is like that's what Friday is for, right? The night before it's to let people kind of camp and relax and have some drinks with friends they haven't seen in a year or so. And so, like, if someone overextends themselves to the point where they're not capable of playing the next day, that's their choice. That was something they decided to do. I wouldn't think that would be on you.
No, that's something they could do even if they brought their own drinks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I do enjoy it. I like the idea of it, because it does, like that, because again, like I've been playing for 10 years, and when in the Ottawa area, Airsoft has really, really changed in those 10 years. Like when I first started, a big game was 30 people. Like if we had that, but more often than not, after we would finish Airsoft, at the field, people would park their cars and bring a tent or whatever, and we would just party. Like, we'd have beers and have a giant bonfire and stuff like that. And so it's very reminiscent of that, and I enjoyed that kind of element of just shooting the shit and have fun with friends kind of thing, right? And yeah. I've always enjoyed that element of it. And I
really think this, in the last couple years, and I don't really know a lot about the Milsim community before that time.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say is, like, my first little bit of time before we had kind of started up the Nomad keggers and stuff was very separatists. Like the two teams would stay on their own side unless there was maybe a couple people you knew on the other side. Yeah. You would have drinks at your own tent, stuff like that. Maybe have a little fire, go to bed, and play the next day. Mm-hmm. Whereas what we're really going out of our way to do is kind of bring back the fun side of Airsoft, the fact that we're all there like making memories with each other. Yeah. And I know there is that aspect of like, oh, does there have to be kegs at games? Like, well, no, there doesn't have to be, but there's no difference between us providing beer and you bringing your own beer. Is just the amount that the player decides to drink. Yeah, maybe we're enabling people, but
mm-hmm.
But yeah,
but I mean, if they're like, again, Nightfall is kind of a beast on its own, where like everything's just kind of different compared to the big milsims, like the big events where it's there's this big segregation of tan versus green, and it's like you guys stay on your own sides, and don't converse and stuff like that. But like with Nightfall, like again, it's like Nightfall is like a reunion of where the Friday before everyone shows up, and that's something else too, where it's like the amount of players that would show up the night before, or not even just the night, like the day before, like they make an effort to show up like by like 3 or 4, and they spend the rest of the night there just partying, drinking, and having fun with people. Like again, like we're both in Ontario, but we're just far enough away that like I only get to see you once a year at Nightfall. So it, like, to me, like having these moments of like, let's crack a beer and sit by the fire kind of thing, I love. Like I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, no matter what, there's going to be people that have different opinions, and I'm not against that at all. I mean, I can totally rationalize the fact that maybe that's not the environment that people want, people having big old parties, but
there's definitely some people who like do want to see Nightfall, like do see Nightfall as more like the real milsims. Like it is. I mean, not to say that it's not a milsim. It's just like the standard kind of like set of what a milsim is. Yeah. Like they go into it with that mindset, and then they see the way they actually do it, and it's like, oh, I don't like this at all.
Yeah. Like, I really think they've done their best to set the bar for milsim Ontario at least. And maybe I haven't played any outside of Ontario games. It's definitely something I want to look into. Definitely Quebec too. I've been looking at a lot of Quebec stuff, and we actually have 2 players that are fluent in French, so we might end up doing that.
There you go, yeah.
But I really think Force Recon has done a really good job of setting the bar of a friendly, inviting milsim that's not too unapproachable, but it's also not so approachable that everyone's trying to do it.
Yeah. Like, an example I'd use is like I haven't really had a lot of milsim experiences. Like I know there's a lot of big milsims nowadays, and unfortunately I don't know the names of them. But when I was early on playing, there was this event out in Fort Drum, New York. It was hosted on the U.S. military base. It was Operation Pine Plains. I don't know if you've ever...
Not familiar. I'm not familiar with Stateside game, but I really want to start.
Yeah. It was a really interesting game because it was very similar to Nightfall, because it was my first milsim experience, right? It was this 26-hour game, something like 500 people per side. It's literally on the U.S. military mount facility. Like, it's a small town, and it's just non-stop mayhem, and it's crazy. Like, it's like if you were to scale up Nightfall, like times
211.
Yeah. And it's like it was a really fun game, but like now, like as we're discussing how Nightfall kind of does their camaraderie and like their like all their sort of like the niches that Nightfall has, it's like I'm looking at that and it's like, when we, like, as much as I loved Pine Plains, like we were, I wouldn't say segregated, but like we would, like, I only hung out with the other Canadians who came down with us, like the Ottawa group. Like I would have like some small interaction with like some of the other teams that from the States. But I mean, as far as I could tell, everyone kind of kept to their own little areas, and then we'd play the game, and everyone would be dead tired, and then everyone would leave and go home. And I don't know anyone from Pine Plains other than the people who I went with. So whereas with Nightfall, it's like I literally get to just walk. I get to walk around the entire thing and just talk to everybody I've met. I may not remember everyone's names, but like I get to interact with everyone, and it's so much more fun that doing that. So, and then especially with the kegger, like just having people out, it instead of having like it's better, right? Like it
makes for a warmer experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ryan, one last thing I really have to ask. You've been an incredible guest. I think we've really been having some really good back and forth on this one. But for players looking,
some great questions.
For players that kind of look, I just dropped my phone. That's probably going to pick up really good. I might cut that out. I might not. Who knows? I'm a wild card. For players that kind of look up to you and Katie and other girls or guys and girls in the photographer side of Airsoft, maybe if that's something they want to do, if you had one piece of advice that you could give them, what would it be?
Specifically about Airsoft photography.
Yeah, specifically about getting into Airsoft photography.
I would say two things. One, go do it. Just obviously just if you have the inclination to go take photos, like you're kind of on the fence, him and Han, just go. Like instead of bringing all your gear, just bring your camera stuff. Like just go out and do it. I give that advice to anyone in photography in general. Really, it's like people will say that it's like, well, how do you do nature photography? Do it. You do it. Just go and learn. Like just experience it, and then you'll find your kind of voice. And
do it.
Yeah, exactly. But the other piece of advice specifically to Airsoft photography is essentially get involved. And I know that's kind of a vague response, but we touched on it earlier about my photos. Is that like you'll only enjoy a photo of back of someone's head so much, and you don't want to see all of them like that. And I think I was lucky in the sense that when I started doing the photography, I was a player as well. I played the game, and so I felt that like when I go to these games, it's like I'm not going to be upset if someone ends up shooting me when I'm trying to take a photo, because I mean, you know what? That's the sport. I mean, sure, I'm wearing a bright red T-shirt, and you should have seen me, but you know what? Everyone's got an itchy trigger finger sometimes. So I don't tend to like jump down people's throats for that, because I do put myself in situations where I'm as in the middle of the combat as possible, right, without to the point of distracting or being like right in the way. And you'll occasionally hear that where it's like Sabad, get out of the way, or get down, or something.
I think I've said that a few times.
Yeah, and I'll try my best to do so, obviously. But I'm there for a reason, because I'm trying to get I want to be able to make sure that I can get both people in their full action moment.
Yeah,
and get the face and the reactions and all that. Because again, if you're just kind of off to the side or behind everyone, there's not much you can get from that.
Yeah.
And
that's just... Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying that's killer advice, and you really tell the difference between photos off on the side and action photos.
Yeah.
But yeah. Ryan, amazing having you on here.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, buddy, you know what? Depending on how long the Nomad podcast goes for, I'm sure we'll get you on again about different topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll definitely be getting in touch with you about some Nomad stuff, things like that. But as always, have a great fucking day. Hold up. Bang, 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 bang. Snoop Dogg song came to my head. Totally almost forgot to do the surprise great fucking guy of the week call. I know we kind of missed it for a few there. Like I said, still getting into the groove of things. So I did a little bit different last time. I already had the call almost going when I first called Anthony, the OG of great fucking guys. But this time I'm going to kind of walk you through the process. And I see Dale Burnett is online here. So we're just going to give him a call and see what happens. I bet he won't pick up. I bet he hates me. Oh, I got to put my headset on. Hello?
Good evening, Mitch.
Dale, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
I'm good. What are you up to, buddy?
I was about to sit down for dinner.
Well, shit. Turns out you're the surprise great fucking guy of the week for the Nomad podcast.
Oh, sweet.
Sweet. So I hope it's not important. Got a couple questions for you, and we're going to get you on the podcast in about 10 minutes when I drop it.
Sounds good.
So Dale, you're a huge player. You go down to US quite a bit. Give a little bit of advice for players in Canada that are more just starting out or looking to get down into that community.
You mean just go to American Games?
Yeah, like I know there's a lot of kind of stigma about how do you get down there, how do you start playing. What's some advice you could give for players?
It's super easy. Don't overthink it.
I think I've heard you give this speech before, but if you could elaborate a little bit, that'd be awesome.
So everyone thinks like when you tell somebody you want to go to American Game, the first thing to go is like, oh, I'd love to go, but the border, and I just tell them to shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about, because if all you need to do is throw an orange tip on your gun, and you need to go and register your guns as not even as guns, just that you own them before you left, and you can safely transport them across the border. The U.S. only requires orange tips for crossing state lines. You can take them off when you get to the game. Me and my guys, we just use fluorescent tape, and we take it off, put it back on when we leave. The real issue is getting your guns back into Canada, because if anybody knows, importing them is a pain in the arse. You need to prove to the government that you owned it, which means at some point it legally entered the country and shot over 366 FPS. But when you actually go and get them registered, you don't actually have to prove that it shoots that. So you can take your pistols, you can take everything you want. Don't even worry about the FPS. You go down to your local CBSA office. I personally use Pearson. It's not in the terminal across the airport. Or you can do it at any border crossing when you're driving down. And you ask them for a temporary exportation permit, something. It's called a Y38. And basically they take down a serial number, what it is, like SEMA, Airsoft toy, whatever the number is, and they sign off on it and go there. You owned it before you left, which means it's legal to bring back in. It's similar to like signing off on a laptop or something, so you don't have to pay taxes on it again when you bring it in.
Yeah, so they don't think you bought it there and then you got to pay for it.
Exactly. Honestly, when people want to go to Milsom West and things like that, I tell them all you need is get the time off, get the money aside, and let's go. There's no other questions about it. It's super easy.
Well, thanks, Dale. That was a great answer from a great fucking guy. Anybody out there that doesn't know Dale Burnett, look him up. Killer profile. And thanks, buddy. Thanks for really, being you.
Thanks, bud.
Bye. Dale. That was fun. I like doing that. I like doing the whole process of that instead of editing a little bit of it out, so that way you guys know it is truly a surprise. But I'm glad I put that in there. Glad I didn't forget. This one is a big shout out to Keanu from earlier in the show, from other podcasts. He's the one really staying on my ass to keep that in the show. So if you guys like it, send some comments in. Let me know you want it. If you don't want it, I'll take it out. I'll probably still randomly call people because I think it's really funny. But, yeah. Back to that music that was happening.